Here we're going to go into the second part of financial statements where we're going to talk about the income statement. Remember that this is also called the profit and loss statement. Remember too that we discussed that we're going to be using the worksheet. This is the worksheet of the campus delivery. And we're going to be using, for the income statement, we're going to be using the income statement columns. And so here we have, on the income statement, it's going to show revenues and expenses, which then indicate our profitability. Delivery fees, in this case, is our revenue, $21.50. And then on the debit side, we have all the expenses listed. So these are the numbers we're going to be using when we go to make the income statement. We don't need any other numbers from anywhere else. We also at the bottom have net income of $1,015, and we're going to double check and make sure that our income statement equals that $1,015 when we get done. Again, the income statement reports the profitability of operations, the number one goal of the business. If there is a manager that's running the business, then we're seeing if management has attained the number one goal of that business. It's for a specific period of time. So in the previous PowerPoint, we talked about how an income statement and the statement of owner's equity need to be shown. We have to show the interested user what period of time. Is it a week, a year, etc. Expenses are subtracted from revenues to determine if we have a net income or loss. So if we have more revenues, then expenses will have a positive number once we subtract, and that will be net income. If we have more expenses than revenues, we're going to end up with a negative number, and that will be a net loss. The income statement, again, is also called the profit and loss statement, or sometimes the statement of operations. So we're going to start our income statement with our heading. And so we have the name of the company. What is this? It's an income statement. And we have the time period. And again, we have to have a range. So this is telling us this information is for a month as opposed to a year or a week. The first number column is used, again, the left-hand column, we discussed this in the previous PowerPoint, is used for details, listing numbers that need to be totaled. And the right-hand column is going to be used for the totals, for the summary column. If you're using your own accounting pad paper and you have more than 2 number columns, then the other number columns will just be blank. Our first step is to put our label, which is revenues, and to list all of our revenue accounts. Now, since we only have one, then it is going to go into the summary column. 2150 goes into the summary column, and that should say delivery fees as opposed to consulting fees. Since it's the first item at the top of the column, it's going to have a $sign. Now I list my next label, which is expenses, and I'm going to list all of my expenses and their amounts that came from the worksheet. Now I'm going to put an underline because I'm going to total up those numbers. Those numbers are all in the left column, the detail column, and I'm going to have to add those numbers up, so I put an underline underneath there. Then I put the word total, and whatever is above there, above that section, which is the word expenses, total expenses. Now I didn't have to do that with the revenues because there was only one. So I don't have to say total revenues. Now if I had more than one revenue, I would have had to say, I would have put the numbers in the left-hand column, put a line under them, added them up, and I would have had to say total revenues. For your Pony Rise to Go project, you have 2 different revenue accounts, and so you will have to put them in the left-hand column, add them up, and put the total revenues then will go over to the right-hand column. So here we have expenses, and we are putting all the expenses in the detail column, and then an underline under it, and we put the word total expenses, and that goes, since it's a total, it's going to go over into the right-hand column, the 1135. We can also check that 1135 on our worksheet, and does it match the total expenses on our worksheet. I'm also now going to subtract those total expenses from my total revenues that are above it, so I'm going to put an underline under the 1135. Now I put the words net income. Since my revenues are more than my expenses, the 2150 is more than the 1135, when I subtract the 1135, I have a positive number, 1015. And so I'm going to call that net income, and I'm going to put that label over to the left. It says net income. Now, if my total expenses were more than my revenues, I would have gotten a negative number, and I would have put the words net loss. I also want to make sure that net income matches the worksheet. And so here's my worksheet again, and there's my net income circled, the 1015, and it does match. Finally, I'm going to, this is a grand total, this 1015, and I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of it, and I'm also going to double underline underneath it. So I've got a dollar sign at the 2150, which is the first number in that column. I got a dollar sign at the 700, which is the first number in that column, and a dollar sign at the grand total of the 1015, which is the net income. Then I also have a double underline under the grand total.